Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Look at you. You're so excited to be back on the air.
Excited to be back. Hello. Welcome, everyone. You have joined us at Distill, a 360-degree view of life and sports. My name is Wendy Rosenthal. I am here with the amazing, the wonderful, the fantastic Ira Schwitzer. Hi.
And you got my name right this time.
Shut up. I've been getting it right for a long time now.
Switzer.
No, I really have.
Switzer.
Shut up. I got it
Switzer.
right.
Schwitzer. Today you got Schwitzer. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
You rock.
I'm good.
It only took you a year and a half.
maybe 3 weeks off gave us
Exactly.
gave my mouth a little bit of a rest.
It was all of our bonding time in New York together.
Exactly. We have been gone for 3 weeks and we have missed it terribly. So we are very happy to be back with you today. We are here in downtown Hollywood.
In the heart of Hollywood.
In the heart of Hollywood, underneath the Hollywood sign, here at the Sunset Gower Studios, the wonderful UBN Radio Network. And we are here today, not with our magic man with fingers, Jarvis Essex, but with
a different magic man.
A different magic man who we love just as much. We are here with Kurt. Can you say hi, Kurt?
Hey, how's it going?
Thank
Yay,
you for
Kurt.
being with us today.
No problem. Glad I could be here. You know, I got to relieve Jarvis every now and then.
You
so,
do.
You know.
It's important. He needs a break from
Yeah,
us.
exactly, right?
Yeah,
know,
although you
this
would
is too
think
much.
3 weeks was long enough without us.
Yeah.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently not. Well, we're very happy to have Kurt behind the scenes driving the show for us, along with intern Ari. You don't have to say
Who did not
anything.
want to be mic'd
Who did
up,
not
but
want to be
she's
mic'd up.
enthusiastically waving and smiling and so happy to be here. I will relay that to all of you on her behalf.
So our show really is about a 360-degree view of life and sports. It's lifestyle. We talk about everything in sports, not just what's happening on the field, although we do like to touch base on kind of what's going on in and around sports. And we think we have an amazing show for you today with a guest that we are going to introduce in just a moment. But first, a couple of notes. One, what's going on in sports? What's exciting you
Oh, I thought
right
you were going to
now?
start with apologizing to the audience for showing up today wearing the same hat you've worn before.
I did, but I was going to wait. That was like what I was going to do because it was going to lead into, you ruined it. I was going to lead into my introduction. Tell me, what's exciting you in sports this last couple of weeks?
We were chatting on the way here about for the first time ever, we are going to see this season in the NFL male cheerleaders dancing alongside the female cheerleaders.
Which is amazing.
It's a pretty cool deal.
It is very cool. And
Two male dancers.
And
That's
it very
awesome.
rarely happens that it's that you're usually saying, and it'll be the first time that we see
Women
doing
showing
something.
up, exactly. But this is the first time we see guys moving into a women's world and doing something for the first time, and that's something to.
And guess
cheer
where?
about.
Guess where, folks?
Of all places, our hometown.
Our hometown.
Go
LA.
LA
Rams. I can't wait to see them. No, but it's really exciting.
Yeah,
and I think
it's very cool.
And I think it's time. I really do. I think that it'll be very
And there is
interesting for
also
them.
one who's made the squad for the New Orleans Saints.
Yes. So it's expanding.
Congrats all
It's
around.
going to be a wave. Let's see what happens next year. We'll probably
Exactly.
have male cheerleaders on every squad.
And we'll have to reach out to him and bring him on the show to discuss what the season
we
was
should.
like. Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
We should talk to him now. It's a
do it.
great idea.
Yeah.
Also, we want to congratulate Francesco Molinari, who is the first Italian golfer to ever win a major. He won the British Open a couple weeks ago, and he played so well. It was so much fun to watch him. I know the spotlight was not on him because everybody was kind of like looking at Tiger because Tiger made a run at it.
Right.
Jordan Spieth because, he's kind of the superstar right now. And Francesco just played a really solid game, and it was so touching to see him win.
Do you think he was able to soothe some of the Italian heartache after a no-show the World Cup?
Actually, I think it did because
I think it helps.
not only did the presenters talk about it, but I do think that it is something that the Italians now have a banner to wave.
They needed
and to
it.
get excited. They did.
Absolutely.
They really did.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, and it's the toughest I think of the majors personally to win because the weather is so unpredictable. I know you're not a golf fan, but
I'm not, but I do get I do get those logistics and
Very challenging.
various factors that affect play.
Yes. And
Yeah,
then
so it's a big
finally,
deal.
we touched on it a little bit, but I am so excited that the NFL is
Favorite
almost
time of
back.
year.
It's my favorite time of year. I already have some preseason tickets to the Rams. I can hardly wait to see them play.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about it over the next few months.
Yep.
And as always, every show, I like to wear a different hat. And Ara was ribbing me a little bit because I didn't realize I had worn this hat before until I was standing there right before the show went. And I went, oh my God, I think I've worn this hat. But there was a reason behind it, as I like to always wear a hat that has something to do with either the topic or the guest that we have on. This guest, which is why I said I wanted it to be the intro, is one of those people that when you meet her, she feels like a beautiful flower.
Yeah.
And so I wore a hat. See the flower? That's why I wore it. So whether I've worn it before or not, it still
works for
represents.
today.
It works
It's
for
perfect
today.
for today.
Apologies for all of the fans out there who are going to be devastated by the fact that I went a year and a bit without wearing the same hat. I hope you can all forgive me. We're going to move right along now to the topic of the day. And Ava and I talk a lot about, a lot of our shows are about how sports is a metaphor for life, how sports play an important role in everything from how you engage with your kids to how you feel about yourself. And our guest today is a person who has an amazing story about how sports kind of helped her overcome physical and emotional challenges in her life,
Sure.
how she's taken it to an amazing level, which I want to ask her about because I don't see how anybody physically does this, especially given some of the injuries or the challenges she was facing health-wise. And also using movement as a way to help her clients
Process and transform.
I love this. Our guest, Carolyn Mahboubi, has a great saying on her website. She converts dreams and goals into projects that are achievable. And she's a project manager for a life built by design and purpose, a fellow USC graduate, which, if you all know, Ava and I both went to USC. Carolyn was in fashion for 39 years, working with the most luxurious brands around. She had to overcome physical challenges and chronic pain, and she's now running ultra marathons. Oh my gosh. And this is why we wanted to talk to her today. Welcome, Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you.
We're so happy to have you. Just before we get started, I want to remind everybody that you can call and ask questions of Carolyn. The number is 323-284-7826, or you can comment below in Facebook. We do check in and see if you have any questions. So before we get started, I gave a little bit of a bio, but can you expand a little bit on what you've been doing, why we asked you here, what makes you special and unique as we think you are?
Well, thank you. I think you covered it as far as my bio. Yes, I was in fashion for a few decades, actually.
Which is shocking because you don't look like you can be in anything for a few decades.
So I started young. I actually brought Versace to the United States in 1982. And I was
When you were how old?
16. Yeah. So that was my path. You know, I went into fashion and then had that for 17 years and then moved on and was a flagship director for Hermes, opened Yves Saint Laurent, Bulgari, and my last corporate position was with Gucci as their director of client relations. So this is to give you some perspective that where I am today is in a very different place than I was at that time. But what they have in common is that I was always in the service business. And what really attracted me to that, to what I did, and what I think made me fairly good at what I did, was that, you know, I was able to serve and really serve from my heart. It's true what you said, that later in my life, you know, in my 40s, I started to have chronic pain. And, you know, I was always a runner. I was always somebody who ran, I don't know, 3-4 miles a day, 4 or 5 miles a day, 5 days a week. And it got to a point where the pain was so bad that I could really barely move. So I'm sure many people can relate to this. A sort of pain comes out of nowhere, and then, the journey begins of going from doctor to doctor to doctor to figure out what's wrong. I do have what is called spondylolisthesis, and which is basically a vertebrae
I won't try and say that again. So thank you for
out of your spine. But I think what's significant to understand is that every doctor I went to said something different. And a few years of going through this really led me to the understanding that nobody was going to fix me. Nobody was going to fix me. Nobody was going to cure me. It was all up to me. And I would say that that was, for me, the beginning of a new phase of my life.
Well, it's something that as a runner, even though you've gone from running 3-4 miles a day to ultra marathons, I can relate to the state of mind that one has to get into when you run any kind of distance at all. And I think this is true of all athletes. I know Ara would probably agree with me that when you have that kind of athlete's mind, you can persevere. You push through a lot,
Sure.
right? Do you find that? I mean, how were you able to, with that chronic pain and the challenges you were facing, still get out there, still run, and then still have the perseverance to say, you know what, I'm not going to take what the doctors say. I'm gonna keep pushing ahead.
Well, I wish that was the case, but I didn't. I really, I stopped running. Many of the doctors said, I literally felt like I could not even walk, let alone run. So I really hit rock bottom. It wasn't exactly as you said, like I was just gonna push through it. I really hit rock bottom. I felt like my life was falling apart. And this was just sort of like an outside symptom of it. The pain was an outside symptom of everything else that was going on in my life. And although I had this, beautiful job that looked very glamorous on the inside, I was not happy and fulfilled on the inside, and different parts of my life, spiritually, emotionally, and obviously physically, were not coming together. So it wasn't until I really hit rock bottom and found myself unable to even walk one time around the UCLA track that I realized, okay, the mindset that I've had up to this point is not working. So what I call my athlete's mindset, and what I teach my clients now, I'm a life coach now, a success coach, is the athlete's mindset. But I didn't have it then. This is something that I developed from the bottom up.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's. I'd love for you to expand a bit more on that, because I think for so many people, when we talk about the athletic mindset, we believe that for most, and I think it is for many, you're born with it, but for some, you can develop it. So what did that look like for you when you say that you had to create this athletic mindset to shift out of the place that you were in? What was that like?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because what you're really saying is, you're comparing a fixed mindset to the growth mindset.
Right.
And I'm sure many people know about this now because of Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. And as parents, we use it, as it's, in schools it's used. And basically the concept is that mindset is not fixed.
Sure.
You are not necessarily born with a set of talents, and then, you use those talents or you don't. It's saying that mindset is perception. Mindset is not your personality. Mindset is malleable. And so when I realized that I needed to develop a new mindset in order to go forward in my life, I started really one step at a time. So I didn't go from running 3-4 miles to ultras.
Right.
I started from walking half a mile. and allowing myself to feel proud of that and not beating myself up over it.
Sure.
And that's how you build an athlete's mindset.
Yeah.
People look at athletes and they say, oh, well, they're so gifted, they're so talented. But yes, many athletes have a great measure of talent, but most, it's their mindset. Most have understood very early on in life that it's about literally putting one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point, and I want to expand on it a little bit, because I think that, we talk about the home athlete, domestic athlete, whatever you want to call those of us like, me, not Ara. Ara is in a different category.
I'm a domestic athlete.
You are on a level that goes well beyond most of us, which is why I love you, because you do that. You're inspirational every day. But, I'll use myself as an example, because for many years, first of all, I didn't think of myself as an athlete, even though I've always been extremely active. I've always loved running. I've always gotten out there and, moved.
Sure.
But not only that, I have definitely found as I progressed, and Ara's heard me talk about this, that I've gone through many slumps, where I something's going on in my body, something's changed, the weather's too hot, where I can't get out there. And I beat myself up. And
Right.
I loved how you said that, an athlete, first of all, an athletic mindset is to almost take all the wins, even if they're small, even if it's, you walked, you went for a walk this morning, you didn't go for a run, you walked half a mile, that those types of things are really important to a kind of a growth mindset around what you're doing. And I think it's important. And let me ask, do you take that kind of analogy when you're bringing that to your success coaching? Is that something that you try and imbue in your clients and with your work?
100%. One of the main things that I teach and I work with my clients on is changing their mindset, right? I mean, that is really the work of life coaching. And it's always about awareness first, and then once you're aware of what's going on, staying with those thoughts and bringing compassion and love to them and to yourself, and staying there as long as you need to, because that is the only way you can then access your wisdom, which is going to give you solutions and opportunities and allow you to see really all the options that are open to you. If we beat ourselves up 100% of the time, we make our world very narrow.
Right.
We're unable to really come up, to really access our own higher coach, our own wisdom, and figure out how to move forward. So it is, in a way, the fundamental basis of my work.
How did you get to a point then that you actually could run an ultra marathon with this condition that you have, with the pain that you had? I mean, I can't even imagine running a marathon, frankly, versus, for those of you who are listening and don't know what an ultra marathon is, it is 50 something miles.
So anything above a marathon distance is an ultra.
Okay.
50 kilometers, 50 miles, 100 kilometers. There are friends of mine that run 100 miles. I just did some volunteering for a race that was 200 miles. Right. So yes, there is a world out there of people who do this.
It's an amazing world.
But here's the thing. There were a lot of changes. It wasn't just, adding 1 mile at a time and finally I was there. First of all, I moved from road running to trail and mountain running. And I want to express to everyone, there's a huge difference
right.
on your body, especially as you get older. Running on, in the city and on the pavement and on the asphalt than if you were running on trails and in the mountains. It's much, and what's more difficult about it is it's definitely ups and downs and uphills and downhills, but even that is more kind to your body.
Sure.
So that is the first change I made. And even though I could only run maybe I could only walk maybe, half a mile. On the trails, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it started to take me out of the mindset of, I got to exercise, I got to do this, to like, look how beautiful it is out here. Look how amazing that I can walk in nature. And, there's a lot of science behind this. The Japanese have done a lot of studies. I don't know if you've heard of forest bathing.
No.
Have you heard of this concept? So this is a big concept with a lot of science behind it that sort of started coming out of Japan in the 90s. And the study was, having people walk a mile in the city and then a mile in the forest, and then checking their blood pressure and different markers after that. And there was significant difference in their stress markers and in their blood pressure of the people that were walking in the forest. Same amount of effort. Okay. So I know that moving myself into nature had everything to do with beginning to heal myself.
Sure.
And I also changed every other part of my life. I was no longer sitting. I changed my diet. I started to stretch and roll and do all of those things. And the reason this is important is because athletes, in my opinion, my own humble opinion, athletes are people who really understand the connection between their mind, their emotion, and their bodies.
Sure.
When you speak to really high-level Olympic athletes, they will tell you that truly it's 80% mindset and 20% physical.
Yeah, we've had the pleasure of talking to a couple of different from a couple of different angles about emotional intelligence in sports, and how having that level of emotional awareness of where you're at while you're playing just elevates the ability of an athlete to succeed.
Heights. Yeah.
Exactly. And regarding your question about the pain is still there.
Yeah.
This is not something where your vertebrae just clicks back in, into your spine and you're good to go. I just don't pay attention to it.
So it's one thing for you to decide, Carolyn, that you are now going to develop the mindset of an athlete, but then how do you decide you're going to take that and share it with others and make a whole career around it?
That happened very organically.
Yeah.
I myself hired a life coach at some point. That's how I understood what this art and science even is. Most people generally don't know what it is. And, I thought, okay, what can I do? I don't want to sell $5,000 handbags anymore. I don't. And these brands are wonderful, but at this point in my life, this work is not meaningful to me.
Sure.
But the pieces of it, like, service, like really listening to people, understanding what's behind what they're saying and what they want. Because nobody ever goes to Gucci or Versace or Bulgari because they need another piece of jewelry or another handbag or, or more clothes. It's not the reason why they come in. And that I was always fascinated with. And what made me a success in that field was I was really able to understand, okay, this is what this person is really coming in for.
Sure.
So, in really assessing, okay, what can I do that can still bring value to the human race, really, and would allow me to be of service, and it's fun, and I want to do, and I could be good at, led me to this. I was doing a lot of, I went to school, I got my degree and all of that, but that became almost irrelevant because clients just want to know, can you help me?
Yeah.
And at this point my business is such where I have great clients who talk to others, so it's really by referral.
And one of the many gifts I think that you bring to the table, and going back to your earlier point about how the pain hasn't disappeared, it's simply something that you've learned to put into a different perspective. And I think that so oftentimes what I love about exercise is just that. It's my body might wake up sore one day, or it's really hurting one day. But when I stop and think about why it's hurting, it's so worth it. So to be able to have that shift, I think, in your mind that says to you, whether it's personally or professionally, physically, something's not feeling right, something's hurting. Is it worth it or is it not? And to be able to have someone like Carolyn come in and say, we're going to make some shifts now. We can look at what's happening for you personally or professionally, and something's not feeling quite right. What are we going to do about it?
Right.
It's again, we talk about this all the time, but physical fitness really is such a metaphor, a perfect metaphor for what we do in life. How we go through life.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think though that to add on top of that, when you are physically active, and I hope, Carolyn, you can expand on this. When you're physically active, it seems like it does open up channels in your mind that you don't really tap into otherwise.
Sure.
So I've said to you many times when I've been out on a run, sometimes I'll even come home and email you straight away because I've had like a moment of inspiration, or I've allowed myself to let go in that moment. And Carolyn, I one of the things that really intrigued Ava and I is the fact that you talk about in life coaching and in success coaching that you like to use movement and you like to use that kind of athleticism to help your clients. Can you expand more on that?
Yes. A lot of people, they're intimidated by the word athlete, and, they feel like if they go out, they need to be some kind of, run 10 miles or be fast or something like that. And I love showing them that all you have to do is just move. If you move, you can call yourself an athlete. And if you move a little bit further tomorrow, that's all that it takes. Now, so it's a great opportunity to take my clients out into nature, very easy. I mean, we're walking, we're hiking, we're super relaxed. But what it does for them is that it really opens them up to being more creative, to being more resourceful, and to being intuitive. I especially like to take clients that are very in their head out into nature, because those are the ones that benefit the most from being more intuitive and from tapping a little bit more into their heart. And nature will do that for you. Yeah. Nature will take you there.
And how does that relate? On top of that, it's okay, you could sit in the park and be in nature. So do you find, for example, when you're running a marathon, there's stages that you must go through, and there are moments where, you must feel like I can't go on, and then you do go on, or moments where you feel like you're in the groove and you're just like an open channel for thoughts. Do you attribute that to the actual process of running, or is it, what do you think happens in the body? I'm just very curious because I find it so interesting for me when it happens to me in those moments.
Yeah, all of that happens, and I'd love to unpack it for you because I think there's some good stuff there. But I do want to say that I took all of that. I became an endurance athlete before I became a coach, and it really, really supported my work.
Really?
Supported and supports my work, absolutely, because I feel like everything I really learned and what I'm taking to my clients, the big lessons, I learned as an endurance athlete. And my kids are sick of it. They'll say, oh my God, one more ultra analogy, Mom, and we're done. No more ultra analogy.
Okay, well, I don't know if your kids are listening, but we'd like to hear some, please.
Yes, exactly.
You can tell them that turn off the radio, get off of Facebook.
Yeah.
We're going to share some.
We want the ultra analogies.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one that I love the most, well, I love them all, but I learned so much. For example, showing up at the start line, I know for a fact is 80% of success. It's just showing up at the start line. Yeah. Because how many times was I afraid of showing up, and how many times are we, afraid to show up at the start line of so many things in our lives? Yeah. And once we show up, it's like we're more than halfway there. It's the same with an ultra. Just show up and start running, okay? And you'll figure out the rest. Yeah. So that's a biggie for me. I would say that in the course of, let's say, 6, 7, 8, 12 hours of running, you're right. There will be times where you're like, oh my God, I just don't want to take another step. And there's two questions that you want to ask yourself. One is why. You've got to really be clear about your why before you even start. But go back to your why. Why am I doing this?
Carolyn, just to interrupt you, we have somebody calling in. Hello, caller.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you, Wendy?
Hi, who's this?
This is Maria Mahboubi. How are you?
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for
Hello.
calling in.
Hi, ladies.
Hi,
How
Maria.
are you?
Good. Do you have a question or a comment for Carolyn?
I do. I've been listening in. So excited that Carolyn's being interviewed today, and I just had a quick question. You know, I really admire everything that you've done, Carolyn, and I just was wondering, you know, at this stage of your life, after like done so much, and now that you're reinventing yourself as a coach so successfully, if you could look back, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing kind of like what you know now?
Wow. That's a good one.
Hello?
Yes, we heard you.
Maria,
we got
she heard the question.
Amazing. She's
Well,
processing.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say we might not cut you off, but let Carolyn answer the question, okay? And say goodbye and thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it.
I would say I would say that the main thing I would advise to my younger self is don't divide yourself into 3 or 4 people and show up as one person at work, one person, you know, on a date, one person, you know, with your sister, your best friend. It's so important to be whole, and it's so important to keep ourselves whole. And I think as women, and especially I come from a culture that, you know, generally it's conservative and tells women you should be this, you should be that. Looking back now at my age, at 53, I would say, oh, I wish I had become whole much earlier in my life and trusted that I was enough. Who I was enough.
That's
Very,
very
such amazing advice. That's powerful.
Now I'm like about to
For all
cry.
of
I'm going to
us.
go, oh my God, am I whole now?
But that's exactly it. That's a powerful message for all of us today.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
For sure it
Are we
is.
integrating all of the various amazing parts of ourselves and showing up authentically each and every day?
But I mean, I want to go back to what Carolyn was saying before Maria called, and thanks again, Maria, for calling in. You know, I want you to continue, because being yourself and being your whole self, I think, is something that's a challenge to do at any time. And I don't know about you, but we're sports bias here, we're athlete bias here. You know, for me, sports has helped me integrate me.
Sure.
You know, it's helped me show up. And I think you were heading to a place where you're talking about how in that time when you're running a marathon or any endurance race, you kind of hit that point and you go, why do I even want to take one more step? So can you carry on from there? Because I think it also adds on to what Maria was asking.
Sure. So it's important to know your why, just like, you know, I encourage my clients to understand their why in any endeavor they take on in their lives. You know, if someone comes to me because they want to lose weight, if someone comes to me because, you know, they want to expand their business, if someone comes to me because they think they're in a horrible relationship and they want to get out of that relationship, they have a tough time communicating with their spouse, or they're having difficulty parenting teenagers. The most powerful question I can ask them is, why is this important? And how they answer that question will determine how we move forward.
Sure.
So I learned that in sports, because yes, you know, 20 miles and, you know, you're dying, you feel like you're dying, you have to be able to ask yourself why, and your why needs to be very compelling in order for you to move forward. And then there are times where the right question starts with what? Okay, I know my why. What do I need to do right now?
Sure.
What do I need to do to move forward? Do I need to eat something right now on this run? Do I need to stop and just take a deep breath? Do I need to take my shoes off and just massage my calves? What do I need to do? And the what is what allows us then to get to the next part and the next part and the next part. And guess what? Soon you're at the finish line and you've done it.
So what happens if the why, even when you're in the middle of an endurance race, is I don't know. Why am I doing this? I mean, have you ever been yourself in that position where you're sitting here going, why? And the answer isn't, something that can get you to a what?
Yeah, no, I haven't been. Because I think that you do not start an endeavor like that without understanding your why. And I have had more coaching than you can imagine in different arenas of my life because I believe in coaching. And my coach made sure that I did not start a race without understanding my why. And your why doesn't have to be completely profound. Your why can be something like, because, I want to post it on Facebook. That's fine with me. I'm not judging. Or, my whys, for whatever reason, is always the person at the finish line. If I have my son or my daughter finish line, that's a big enough why for me. Yeah. And then I have bigger whys. But I can't tell you that I have found myself in the middle of an ultra not knowing my why.
Or, no, I mean, that's really interesting because how often in life do we stop in the middle of something and go, why am I doing this?
Right, which takes us back to what we talk about all the time, which is what's your intention?
Yeah.
Like really, our intention affects everything that's going to happen from here on out. So being so clear on what your intention is helps outline what that path of success looks like.
It's so interesting because some of the clients that we work with, the why, the struggle they have is because the why has always been to play whatever sport it is that they want to play. That's been the why. I get up in the morning, I work out harder than anybody, I wake up earlier, I put myself through torture, because I want to play this sport. And then what happens to them after the sport, that career is done.
Right.
The why it's dissipated. So, you're talking about a why in a very specific way. Do you have thoughts on how to kind of expand that why or to evolve it? Because, for people like athletes who are at the ends of their career, they're having to face a world of, I don't have a coach, I don't have a workout I have to get to at 4 a.m, or a coach that's going to tell me to get off the bench and get on the field. How does somebody evolve their why?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what I find works very well in my world of coaching, success coaching, is just keep asking why. Just keep going deeper. Okay, why? Because, I want to be the best in my field. Why? Is that important for you to be the best in your field? And if you keep going with that and you go deeper, eventually you'll get to the real why, the deepest why, the in the heart, why of this person. Okay. And that why can then be transferred to another field. I know that
Carolyn, we have another caller. I hate to cut you off, but I'm going to answer. Hello, okay. Welcome to Distill It.
Hi.
What's your name?
Hi, my name's Piera Klein, and I am calling with a question for Carolyn Mahboubi.
Please.
Great. You're on air.
Hello. Hi, my name's Piera Klein.
What is your question for Carolyn today, Piera?
Piera, maybe you can turn off your device because we're hearing
Yes, my question is, I'm so impressed with the work that Carolyn is doing and very inspired by it. I'm wondering for her what the difference is between coaching and therapy.
Thank you, Piera. That's a good question. Therapy is centered in the past. And it's a very important modality. And it's about finding, okay, why am I doing this? Why is this happening? Why are these my behaviors? And coaching is centered in the future. So we figure out where you are today and how we're going to move forward and go from here to achieve the goals that you want to achieve and create a new future for yourself that is not a default future. Coaching is also incredibly action oriented, which is why as an athlete, I really relate to it. I love the idea that I can help people actually act on their vision.
Sure.
And you talk about coaching as being something it's moving forward and looking forward. If you go back again to some of the challenges that our clients face in terms of their moving forward beyond their athletic career, how do you help somebody repurpose their skills? So, for example, you have an amazing skill that served you for 39 years in the retail world. You obviously were successful and achieved it, and then you switched, to being a success coach. How did you repurpose your skills? Because we talk a lot about that with our clients, about repurposing their athletic intelligence and taking what they know how to do as athletes and using that to their advantage beyond the field. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So there is a very simple but actually very profound exercise that I take my clients through when they are having trouble sort of having confidence to move forward in a different field and even understanding how to move, where to go from here. I take them back to a time when they did something where they were super successful at it. They really felt like they nailed it. They were so good at it, and everything just felt right for them. And I asked them what innate qualities in them did they use to be so successful at that time. And they go inwards instead of outwards, which is where they usually are at. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? They go inside to their own gifts, their own greatness, their own innate qualities that they brought to the table. And they'll say, well, I was really resourceful, and I was really able to bring teams together, and I was able to communicate, and I'm very linear. I was able to execute. If the boss, if my boss wanted something done, he knew if he gave it to me, it was done. And we go through these qualities, and you would be amazed, because the same person who a minute ago didn't know where to go suddenly is just unpacking their own greatness for me and for themselves. So once we identify these innate qualities, then we start thinking, we start brainstorming about how those qualities can be expressed in a new field and in a new way. And we take it from there.
And what I love about that is that it really puts the power in the client's hands, because I think so much of the time when we think about a therapist or a success coach, a life coach, we're talking about looking for someone that can tell us what to do next.
Right.
And there's a beautiful authenticity, I think, to the work that Carolyn does, because it really does require someone to be so clear, not just about what their why is, but to make sure that it's their very own why. I mean, I think about some of the clients that we work with, and so much about why they want to do certain things has nothing to do with them and their own talent and skills or desires, and everything to do with something someone said to them they should be doing, have to do, might be good at.
Right.
But there again is such a beautiful authenticity to what Carolyn does that I think it puts the power right back where it belongs, which is so much of what you and I talk about in the work that we do, that it's not about having clients come to us so we can tell them, here's what we think you should be doing, and so here's plan A and the steps A, B, and C for you to follow. It really requires you to be an active participant in the strategy that we're putting together here.
Because the strategy is, it has to come out of them in the sense that, if you're not, one thing that we've learned over the years, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, I mean, what makes a great athlete a great athlete? Yeah. Of course, it's their physicality, it's their, whether they're 6'5" or, or they're tiny like a gymnast, you know, like all those physical things are super important. And some people have better athletic skills just physically than others. But as Carolyn said earlier, the majority of what makes an athlete successful is their mindset, is their ability to work through different issues along the way, to challenge themselves, to push themselves out of a comfort zone,
Sure.
to not act from a place of fear. And what's so interesting that we've seen, Carolyn, and I'd love your comment on this, is that so often those skills that people innately end up having, either they're innate or they're innate because of what they've done. So, for example, an athlete may have to hone those skills, but they hone them in the process of becoming an elite athlete. How it's so easy that it gets pushed inside and not recognized as a skill that can be transferable to something else.
Sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because part of that is the outside world is to blame, because when an athlete continuously hears, "Oh my God, you're so talented, they start to believe that, oh, okay, it's my talent,
Right.
and that's all it is. But it just isn't. 90% of the time, it is the everyday showing up and doing the work. And if you can unpack that for the athlete and make them realize that they are so much bigger than their last record that they broke or PR or whatever, and that they've created this, so they can create something
Right.
else.
I think that's a beautiful point, and I think that that's true, and it runs across, again, not just athletes, it's all of us.
Sure.
Recognizing our greatness and saying, I can do that someplace else.
Yeah.
Or I can do it another day, or I can, to keep moving forward.
And with like my the part of my life, the athletic part of my life, the running and the ultras and the races and so on, for me, it's meaningful. My why is because I'm able to set that as an example of what a person can do when they put their mind to doing it.
Sure.
Because I was not an athlete. I did not run track and field. I was always the last person picked, for PE or anything in high school. I was not that person. So when people say to me, "Oh my God, you can do it, but I can't." No, it's not true. I started in my late 40s, and I'm a 53-year-old woman who is doing this. And, I keep setting my sights higher and higher. And my why is because I want to show that we're limitless, that we can do so much more than we think, that we allow ourselves to think that we can do.
Well, that's incredibly inspiring. I kind of sound speechless, but I really am internalizing what you're saying, and I think that it's one of the reasons, we wanted to have you on the show, because it doesn't seem necessarily like, why do you want to have a success coach or a life coach on the show? And I think the reason is because of the fact that athletics, sports, it's so representative of life. And what you're talking about is not only something that you as an athlete have to consider, but you as a human being, and how you project that and how you talk about it and the things that you stress are so important, I think, for our viewers and our fans of sports to understand what makes up an athlete makes up all of us.
Sure.
And when you tap into those things, I think sports helps us see it in a different way, which is a reason we wanted you on the show, so that we could see it in a different way.
Absolutely. And Carolyn, if you can believe it, we are already at the end of our show. We have maybe 2 minutes left. So if there's one takeaway you can give to our audience today, what would that be?
That we're all athletes. If you can move, I'm stealing this from Nike. If you have a body, you're an athlete.
Sure. One of our favorite quotes. We talk about that all the time. We love it.
And thank you for signing Nike so that we don't get in trouble. No.
And, one last thing that I learned running in the mountains that I bring into my life that I want to share with everyone is I learned this from doing mountain runs.
Yeah.
Mountains, they go up, they go down, there's uphill, there's downhill. And it's just how God made the mountains.
Sure.
It's not personal.
I love that.
It's like life. There's ups, there's downs. It's not personal.
Absolutely.
Just keep putting one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. That's all that matters.
That's incredible. Carolyn, you've been amazing. And
Wait, before we sign off,
Yeah.
Carolyn, can you tell everybody how they can reach you if they're interested in speaking more to you?
Terrific. Thank you. Well, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and my company is called Shift Life Coaches. So it's just, I have a website, www.shiftlifecoaches, spelled out one word, easy to find.
Now you can say thank you.
that's what I was going to ask her was,
Oh.
thank you. I was going to say, Carolyn, you've been amazing. And for our audience who's listening, how can they find you?
Oh,
But
I
there
got a
it
little
is.
excited.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. Wanted to make sure we didn't forget that. Thank you again, though. Really, you've been amazing. Folks can find you now at shiftlifecoaches.com. And for those listening, we'll be back next week, Tuesday the 14th,
Yes.
same time. So
Yes.
please tune in then. And if there's nothing else you've taken away today, guys, remember, just show up to the start line. It's 80% of the work.
It's
You
exactly
can do it.
right. And before you start show up at the start line, please like us on Facebook. You can also download our podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher. Our website is thedistilleryinc.com, where you can find our archive shows. We'd love to hear from you, and we really hope to see you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and thanks to those of you who called in, and we will see you next Tuesday. Have
a
a
good day.
wonderful week.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.